All right, we are now in session, and I will take a motion to, Brian moves to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? I think Prakash, second. Any further discussion? Any notes on the minutes from last week or 2 weeks ago? All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please click yes. And if you don't remember how to do that, make sure your participants panel is open. All those opposed, vote no. And if anyone is abstaining, you can click more and use the coffee cup to indicate that you're abstaining from the vote. And Marianne, you just got in. We are voting on, oh, she doesn't have audio yet. Marianne, we are voting on the minutes from 2 weeks ago. So if you could vote yes, no, or abstain, please. Melissa, let me know when you're good.
I don't have a vote from Prakash.
Prakash, can you click the either yes, no, or
Did you come through?
I didn't see it.
So Prakash, to vote, I think I saw your hand go up. That's a yes?
Yeah. But I
Okay.
thought I did the clicking too. I don't know what happened.
So if you click on participants, you see the yes button?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
So I have everybody approving except for you and me and nobody abstaining.
okay, cool. I'm going to clear all them. Thank you. I'm going to turn it on over to President Schott.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I just have a few announcements. We are going to do an end of the year breakfast this year. We're going to do it virtually, so no bacon or any other good food involved. But we're planning to have it on June 10th from 8:30 to 9:30, something like that. And we're going to have it as a live event without an audience. So that means that I and the VPs will be in the Rogue River room, and Prakash, Justin, Kimball, anybody who would normally speak at that end of the year breakfast as part of that event will be invited to come and do your part. And then the Digital Media Center will be there televising it. So we do want to celebrate the end of the year. We want to celebrate all the accomplishments by faculty, give our outstanding staff awards, and all of that. So it'll be different, but it will be. So that's the good thing. We also have scheduled, I had said during one of my live streams that we were going to do some budget sessions with all divisions. As we looked at the demands on our time and how quickly the calendar is moving along, we decided that is just not practical. So what we're going to do is schedule a budget webinar on May 28th from 12:30 to 2. It will be done as a webinar, and people can submit questions during the webinar, and it will also be recorded so that anybody who can't watch it live during that time can catch up on it later. This is a relatively high level, but look at the budget situation at the end of this fiscal year and what we believe we're seeing coming for the next fiscal year. We won't have all of the answers yet. There's still a lot of unknowns, but we want the campus to know as much as we know and to see what we're seeing. So if you can participate live, May 28th, 12:30 to 2. And then I've also asked Vice President Fratella and Vice President Wolf to organize a webinar on our reopening efforts. You know, they have a group working. Some of you are serving on some of those groups. And I think that lots of folks around campus have a lot of questions about what we're planning. So again, we'll do our best to update everybody. We are expecting the guidance from the Oregon Health Authority no later than this Friday to all of higher ed. So we'll take the work that we've been doing and then see how it meshes up with the guidance we get from the OHA and, and begin to really build out our plans going forward. I don't have the date for that yet, but know that it's coming. And when people ask you questions about reopening, say, well, we don't know yet, but I know the president's planning to have a session for the whole campus where we get more information about that. And then finally, I wanted to address the vandalism, the act of hate that occurred on our campus again last Friday. I really don't have any more details than we put in the message that we sent out. We did have a meeting on Saturday with culturally identified student groups and their advisors, as well as the group of folks who are helping me lead the diversity, equity, and inclusion work, which I haven't announced that yet, but because we're still finalizing compensation and stuff. But if you don't know it, maybe I can't remember who I've told what now, but Sabrina Prudhomme from Cabinet, who's been working as board secretary, Kylan DeVries, and Jonathan Chavez Baez are all sort of working together as a group to help me lead this work forward. So we had that meeting on Saturday and sent out the announcement right after that. We are actively investigating. We are hopeful. There were a couple of leads in this case. So I don't know if we'll be able to actually find who did it, but we have more to go on than we did in prior occasions. So that's where we are. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Linda. Could you say the time and date of that reopening webinar again?
Don't know that one
Oh, you
yet.
don't know. Okay. Okay, thank you. We have time for maybe a couple questions. We are on a real tight schedule today, but if anyone has another question for President Schott. All right, not seeing any hands. All right, thank you, Linda. I'll go over to Sue.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'll just be brief. I sent out a tome last night, so I don't think I need to talk about the professional development opportunities, but I'm happy to answer a specific question if you want to shoot me an email. There will be more details coming out. Jody's just finishing up something to send out to the directors, who will then share with their folks. And we meet with the chairs and directors on Wednesday, so we'll also provide information about those opportunities I spoke of. But very exciting to have the opportunity to offer so many different things to take part in. I just want to say Clay Austin has been amazing, and he continues to just say, what can I do? How can I help? What do you need? What can we do for faculty to make them feel more comfortable with their pedagogy in this distance learning and hybrid environment? So if you see Clay, just say thank you. He and his whole team have been working very hard to help with this. And then last, I'll just say that I mentioned that we're meeting with chairs and directors on Wednesday. Neil has graciously agreed actually to come and talk about the reopening. I thought that chairs might have very specific questions, and he's been kind enough to make himself available. So you'll have a little preview on that work on Wednesday. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Sue. Any quick questions for Sue? All right, Brittany. Are you with us, Brittany?
Yeah.
All right.
So don't have a ton. I'll start with ASSOU. We don't have a ton going on right now. Our election results were invalidated, so we have to do those again. So we're doing elections again. The words from the students that I would really love to pass along to some of you, I just saw an email to all students to kind of express what we've been feeling like this remote term and our motivation and like how faculty have been doing in the classes and just like the platforms that we've been getting our classes delivered on have been good, or like we're supposed to be rating those. So I'm excited to see the results of that survey. I think that was really smart to send that out and get that feedback from students. I don't remember if I've said this here or in other meetings. The big thing I am getting recently is just feedback from some students who are in different time zones, like Hawaii and such, who are being asked to like, you know, basically those accommodations to their time zone is not being made by some of their faculty, that like they have to get up at 5 a.m. to go to their classes, and you can't really focus at that, but your classmates are in Oregon time and able to do that, or your deadline for your homework is due at 9 while your peers are still due at midnight. So I think those little things, just like, I understand the faculty side that you still have your interest to protect and every student can't be made accommodation to all of them, but this is a tough time, and I know if I was in that place, that would be tough. The other thing that's really coming to light even more in being remote is our accessibility in the classrooms. For a lot of students, Zoom does not have transcriptions, and some students are not very vocal about that they do have loss of hearing or hearing difficulties, and so that can be tough if someone relies on reading lips and your Wi-Fi is glitching. Those are just things that you can't really overcome as easy as you can in the classroom. A fun tip that I don't know if any of you knew is Google Hangouts is another one that I don't know how great it works for large class meetings, but Google Hangouts does do a transcription as you talk. The school is having a conversation right now about hiring potentially a transcriber for those classes. We know that's money. So we're just looking at it, but maybe talk with some of your students or ask them anonymously, like in a little Google form, of how is it going? Is there anything I can do to make it more accessible for you? Because some people are not as open about that need, especially right now. Students are struggling, and it's not easy for some people to just come and potentially know how to word properly, hey, I need this help. I need you to help me do this. So I just wanted to call attention to that, because I'm getting a lot of students kind of coming to student government to say, you know, I don't know who to go to. I don't want to go to my professor because I don't want to risk upsetting them. Most people don't even know that they have a chair of the department to go to. So I would just say keep an eye on that. That's pretty much it, though.
Thank you, Brittany. Any questions for Brittany? All right, thank you, Brittany. I'm going to move on to Kimball.
Hi, everybody. So I am going to be giving you the Advisory Council meeting report and adding a few little flourishes. So we did have a full meeting of the Senate Advisory Council with President Schott and Provost Sue Walsh last Monday. They gave us together kind of a snapshot overview of all the fears and uncertainties, frankly, around our budget. I won't bother trying to give you every little point because some of it's probably already out of date, but a big takeaway, and I don't remember if President Schott said this or not, but we will be getting the May budget forecast for Oregon in 2 days, and that will drive a whole lot of how the governor and the legislature, you know, actually deal with our budget situation next year, as opposed to everything that we're underway. Of course, it was fresh news at that time that we'd been asked to cut our planned spending by 17%. I'm saying this poorly. Make a provisional plan to be able to cut our budget by that amount, subject to further details. And of course, as always, I'm the voice of hope, which is that if the Congress and the president can get their act together and the federal government backfills state some, that could take some of the weight off of our pretty scary future for next year. We were also talked a little bit about reopening and protocols. Both President Schott and Sue and Provost Walsh mentioned some of those things in their reports. Of course, the burning question for us all is, will we be in the very same place we are now in the fall? Will we be back to face-to-face? Will we be where we are now with a hope to move to face-to-face? The answer is we don't know, so don't ask us. Let's see. I'm looking through what else we talked about here. One other item that the president discussed with us a bit is the report of I think it's the TAC on tuition. And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, President Schott, is that the institutional board will be taking that up this week at their meeting. We know that it'll be less than 5%. And I think President Schott said at our Senate meeting two weeks ago that she's hoping for less. I don't think anything more has been said about that. Anyway, then we did move on to what we usually do, which is to organize our meeting, and most of the stuff that you will, that we discuss will be seen in our agenda, particularly some big items on amending the bylaws in the Section 5 for faculty. One thing is, and this is kind of a self-admission, I'm on the task force for recommending post-tenure possible changes, and I had to admit to them, and I'm now admitting to you, I don't think our group's going to get a full recommendation to you by the end of this year, but we will definitely intend to get one early in the fall. So there was that. We actually briefly talked about the concept, and this was kind of in the area of ongoing work by the president in potentially getting codified into the Senate Constitution and bylaws some changes, that some of which have already happened and some of which might happen in terms of the presidential advisory committees and some of those kinds of groups. And I think the most interesting thing that she mentioned, among many things, was the possibility of a staff senate or a university senate. That's very preliminary. She wasn't announcing a plan, but just some of the ways that we can get the rest of the segments of the faculty involved in getting, you know, some opportunity to be in the consultation process. And I think that's it for advisory council. I want to slip into an elections committee mode here. We have the elections committee, which consists of April and Melissa and myself. We have run elections now for everything that we know about. And we do know who next year's Senate will be. I'll announce these, but I think we're going to get this sent out in a way that you don't have to remember to read some minutes. But in the library, Melissa Anderson got reelected to a 3-year term. In STEM, Anna Oliveri and Michael Parker got elected to 3-year terms. I got reelected to a term that will be 2 years. Mark Siders got reelected in business for a 3-year term. New senator for next year in OCA is Brendan McMahon. In Education, Health, and Leadership, Amy Bell Castro and Chad Thatcher will be beginning 3-year terms next year. And Jesse Longhurst won election to a 2-year term. In Humanities and Culture, Marilyn Lundahl got elected to a 3-year term. And if you didn't hear your division mentioned, that's because all of the seats in your division, plus, by the way, all of the at-large positions are currently occupied by people whose terms continue next year. On that note, I wanted to mention that we need to set our leadership and all of the other positions for the Senate. We will do at least most of that, if not all of that, at our next Senate meeting, which will combine to be the final Senate meeting for this year and the first Senate meeting for the next year. As you all know, I was elected to chair-elect, and because I did win my Senate election, I will actually get to serve as chair. Woohoo! Positions we still need in the core leadership are chair-elect and secretary. I'm going to go ahead and speak for her here. Melissa has made it known that she'd be willing to run for chair-elect, but that's obviously a position anybody could run for, and so we want to get the word out to both, well, people who are continuing on Senate next year and our new senators. So there's that position. And then another position we'll need, if Melissa happens to win, and that is we'll need a secretary. So If anybody is interested in having a guaranteed seat on the advisory council and also willing to, oh, by the way, take minutes for us with the help of our video and our, we have a student helper now too. Please contact somebody on the current advisory council and let us know. I think we plan certainly to run the election for all the other positions, the rest of the advisory council, all of the sort of, you know, who would be on Constitution Committee, who would be on Elections Committee, et cetera. We'll run that at the next Senate meeting. Do I have anything else I wanted to say? I don't think so. That's all I got.
All right, I'm going to pop over to President Schott. I think she had a thought on something you said.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, thanks for reminding me, Kimball. I am recommending to the board a tuition increase of 3.7%. We did a lot of thinking about it. It seemed to be an amount that was in line with a lot of other universities and would still enable us to have, we feel like it's affordable for most of our students, and for the ones it's not, we'll be able to provide financial aid to help them with that. So that will be going forward to the board, and then we'll see what they approve.
Thank you, President Schott. Brian, looks like you have a question.
This is for President Schott. Is that across the board for all students, or is that just new incoming students?
That is the undergraduate resident tuition rate. So it will be for new and continuing. And then Sue could talk to you more if you really want to. It goes out to graduate, WUI, non-resident. I mean, there are different rates for a lot of different categories, but it's all built off of that basic undergraduate in-state rate.
Sue, do you want to add?
Yeah. Thank you. So the WUI rate will be 1.5 of the rate that President Schott quoted, because it's based on the resident undergraduate rate. So it's just 50% more. The others were across all the categories, out of state undergrad and grad, with the exception of the MBA online and the Masters of Science and Education online, will be 4.99%, which actually kind of rolls down to 4.67 eventually, but it's a little calculation there.
All right, thank you, Sue. Thank you, Brian. Any other questions for Kimball on that report? All right, not seeing any. So with that, does anyone have a motion to approve the undergraduate curriculum material that was proposed last week? I see Lori with a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Precious as a second. Sorry, Michael, you missed it. Any further questions or discussion on the undergraduate curriculum committee materials from 2 weeks ago? Mark, unmute you, Mark. What's up?
Is this the time to talk about the minor in esports?
Yes, that would be part of the proposal. Yep.
All right. I did a little research, and one thing that we should recognize is that of all of the people who graduated in 1819, only about 20% of them had a minor at all. 80% of them did not have a minor. Of those that did have a minor, the majority were business students who have a minor because we require them to have a minor. The mode number of minors across all minors given was 1. We don't have very many large minors. The minor count has more to do with the size of the major than anything else. That's the biggest correlation. And then this particular program is kind of different from some of our others in that it has 2 courses that will be taken only by the minors. These will be very small classes. That's my contribution. I'm wondering why we're doing this, but I'll leave it to somebody else to have an opinion.
Before I go to Brian, I'm looking at my map. Where's Jeremy? Isn't Jeremy here? Oh, there he is. Thank you for waving, Jeremy. That was helpful, that motion. Do you want to respond to Mark's point there? Oh, I'm not hearing you, Jeremy.
No.
No.
Technical difficulties.
He's not muted.
Maybe turn off your mic.
Is your mic on? Uh-oh.
Gonna
All
go
right,
to
well,
somebody else's office.
yeah, well, I'll go to Brian for a second while
So this is where we just gang up on Jeremy?
Yeah.
Since
While
he's
he's out of
not
the
here to
room.
defend himself?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
So the question that I had was the same question that I brought up 2 weeks ago. I know that I was looking at the minors that we have. There's 37 minors at SOU, and 24 of those minors have majors affiliated with. So CCJ has a major and a minor, and there's 24 like that. And then there's 13 minors that you can take without a minor or without a major program. But they have a lot of faculty, GSWS, NAS, philosophy, military science. And so my question to Jeremy, who is not here to defend himself right now.
well, he is.
Oh, hi. He's in Mark's backyard. Wow, that's a way to run. So the question that I had is, again, he's a new chair. We have 2 classes that will be taught primarily by him. And it just seems like that's a lot to ask for a new chair, a new program. And I'm just wondering if now's the right time to have that minor, or if a certificate would be better. And so, those are just my questions when looking at the research.
All right, well, Jeremy, now that you're with Mark, you can respond.
Okay, I'm hanging out with Mark, and he's doing the lighting, so don't mind the freakish glow. A couple of things. Well, first I'll address Mark's question. Unlike the other minors, we actually do have a major feeder into this minor, and it is interdisciplinary, like we've mentioned, and university-wide. So it encourages interdisciplinary buy-in across disciplines. That's a really nice thing. We also have the club sports teams that are going to act as feeders. I've reached out to Eastern Illinois University and Shenandoah University's leads, the professors that are heading up their esports programs that are brand new themselves. They have 50 brand new students, or at least Eastern Illinois University had 50 the first year. And Shenandoah is already launching 3 other programs to include a master's degree, all tied to esports because it's growing exponentially. So that's what I would say firstly with respect to the potential for growth here. And then I would add on top of that, I think COVID and everybody being at home and gaming, we've seen a huge upswing in gaming. I think there is some vast merit here, arguably. And we're talking about, we have 2 billion people worldwide that are avid gamers through a litany of mediums. That's also telling as well. The 2 primarily being console driven and PC driven. Most of us do game on our phones as a reminder. To Fedorik's point, Brian's point, I think that yes, it's going to be a bear the first year to deal with this with respect to also being chair, but taking on more than I can handle seems to be an old narrative for me. So I'm not too afraid of taking it on, but I am taking it on with the understanding that eventually I'd like to find some content experts that could come in and replace me. So just to get the ball rolling and to strike while the iron's hot, I think this is a perfect opportunity for us, especially if students are going to be looking for programs that are arguably flexible comparatively so.
Jeremy, Jeremy, can you say a bit about, especially since minors don't get any particular funding, whereas a certificate, we do get funded for that.
Mm-hmm.
What was the reason for the decision to launch this as a minor and not a certificate?
I think a lot of it had to do with just lean processes, being as flexible as possible. The process for us to get a minor was much more streamlined than, say, a degree altogether. When I initially pitched this, it was for a degree, and that was the result of having gone to Vegas and met with industry insiders. But for now, it's just to get the ball going, so to speak. But I wouldn't have committed to this if I didn't see the potential for exponential growth, for sure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Brittany, you have a question?
Yes, well, it was more of a statement. My mother works social media and website for a school district in Riverside County, California. And about a year ago, she was like, do you know anything about esports? It's so growing, it's huge. And she was telling me to try and get it at SOU. And it kind of slipped my mind in the midst of all this new government stuff, but I think this would be an awesome thing to bring to SOU. And I think definitely students would love it. We have a huge intramural program and students love that. And I think this would just be also to bring in our commuter students and just different things that for remote. So I just want to say I love it.
And if I went out on top of what Brittany just said, we did do a survey in the fall, and we had 323 respondents university-wide, and that's a really good sample size for the amount of surveys we often do around here and get no feedback. So it was primarily students, and I would say over 80% showed just favoritism for wanting to do this. And then there were, I think, 180, there was almost 200 that were interested in taking classes tied to esports, and there was about 100 that said no, they wouldn't be interested. So there is definitely some conversation momentum going on right now.
Any other questions or comments? Ellen? Try to unmute you.
There. Does that work?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I hate to be the sort of school marm here, but shouldn't you guys be like 6 feet apart or something?
Mark's out of the room. I went for a long walk and I'm very sweaty, so I think he bounced for that reason more than anything. So
That's all I had to say.
All right. We can pass another motion on that later. Any other questions or comments on the motion to approve? Chad?
I just want to say, I never really knew this world existed that much, but started diving into it for lessons and stuff. So I found some great whitewater kayaking videos that you can simulate the movement of kayaking. I also found some stuff for mountain biking. Anyway, it opened a whole new world for me. So thanks for introducing that. And I also looked into how big it is. It's massive, just like you guys were saying. So I'm excited to see this opportunity for our students.
All right, thanks, Chad. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the undergraduate curriculum package, please indicate so by saying yes. If you oppose the package, please vote no. And if you are going to abstain, please pick up your little coffee cup there. And Melissa, I'm going to unmute you so you can let me know when you're good to go.
Right. Let me just note this very quickly. I've got you're abstaining and Jeremy is abstaining and Lori, I think I saw abstaining too. Yep. Okay. And then Siders was against. And everybody else I have as approving, I believe. I don't-
Brian Fedoruk was against.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that, Brian. I did not see that. Yes. Okay.
I think that's accurate. All right, so we're good?
Yes, we're good.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have new university studies recommendations. Who is representing? That's going to be Lee. Hi, Lee.
Hi, thank you. So University Studies is bringing forth the final batch of our University Studies recommendations for this academic year. We have 7 courses that we've brought forward to you. I think that's right. No, there's more than that. There's 8 courses. There's 5, all happen to be East Strand exploration courses. And then there's 3 integration courses for your consideration. All of the templates are in your folders that are in the shared drive from University Studies. And now that some of these courses are new, like the Psych 470 and the NAS 360, we had to wait for you to get through those hard numbering. So that's why there's a little more than usual, but we're all caught up, so here they are.
Thanks, Lee. Of course, we aren't voting on those today. Those will come up in our final meeting, but if there are any questions for Lee, feel free to raise your hand. I had one, Lee, just because of the sheer number of the E-strands there. And I feel like I've heard that we may have an oversupply of E-strands already, but maybe I'm misunderstanding that. What is our, do we have any concerns about adding?
No concerns at this point in time. We haven't put any limits or restrictions up, but I did quantify all of the current courses and how much they've been increasing per year on our final report for you, which I'll be submitting. So if you have questions about those increases or the amounts of substitutions that we're doing, you'll have that report and you could ask questions next meeting for sure.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions for Lee about any of these courses? Chad?
Is there any disadvantage to having as many courses for students to apply for as possible to take? Is there a disadvantage to that?
I think the only disadvantage that people have really worried about, and thank you for that question, is do we have so much choice that instead of having, let's say, 10 things to choose from that students go into, we have 20, but we're serving the same number of students. So there's been some of that question. I also believe that the task force for general education will also do some of the shifting for us as we look at next year and getting through that transforming general education and all that it can be, and what we hope for as we move forward with it. It will help us make some of those decisions about bumps in the road, how much is too much, find that Goldilocks moment with, just the right amount of classes. And I think that'll help drive those questions.
Thanks, Lee.
Yeah.
Chad, one other thing I'll mention, and I've sort of seen this anecdotally, which is that there are programs, and I don't know if what the seat count in these classes are, but I do know that there are a number of programs that have come to rely on certain sections for SEH, and so as new courses get added in the different strands, that can sometimes draw students from one program to another and affect budget within a program. Although to Lee's point, the task force is moving away from that kind of model of gen ed anyway. So one way or another, we're going to have to pay that piper. Any other questions for Lee before we move on? All right, thank you, Lee. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have some small graduate changes. I think is that Jody? Jody, are you representing?
I am, yes. Although I think there's always, I think there's an education person here who might want to speak with these or speak to these as well, but I'm happy to summarize these changes.
Okay.
So you have a couple of courses that education has provided. These changes were made to adapt to the shift toward the new online concentrations. So the content that you see here is intended to help facilitate the students' progress and the specific characteristics of the online program. You'll see, for example, that the Ed 531-503 offers students both a traditional research project orientation and a professional track orientation. So we wanted to make that, or education wanted to make that more clear to students. And then they have adjusted some credit amounts as well due to the workload that's associated with the programs that are attached to these. There's a portfolio project, which is now 4 credits as opposed to a variable 1 to 9 credit. And again, that's related to the 7-week online concentration. And then General Studies Education 531B project design course, which is now 5 credits in order to reflect the rigor and allow the students more time. So that's the summary from Grad Council on those courses. And I'm happy to answer any questions if I can. And if not, I'd be happy to scurry away and ask people in education if they can help clarify.
All right, thank you. Any questions about those grad proposals? Pretty minor. All right, thank you, Jody.
Thanks.
All right, next up we have the bylaws, a lot of different bylaws. All right, I'm gonna, Melissa, do you want to help coordinate this discussion, or?
Sure, I could help coordinate it. We could start with the simpler ones, which, I mean, I think the COVID-19 one is the simplest one. I think we have to vote separately on each of these, because they're all kind of different.
Right, and we won't be voting on any of these today. We just want to have sort of discussion and answer questions about them. We'll vote on all these in our final session in 2 weeks. So the tenure and promotion recommendation, that was adding in the pandemic basically is one of the things that would automatically allow a faculty member to delay, take a 1-year delay on tenure or tenure clock pause. So that was a pretty simple change there. And it also, the other change is that it allows Faculty Senate to make additional recommendations should something else that we haven't anticipated and haven't put into the language. So it gives a lot of latitude for both faculty who have been impacted by something that's happening in the world, and also to the Senate to be able to weigh in on issues that are not quite captured in the language. So any questions about those changes?
It was really modeled on what was already there for personal things that come up, except that this would be a collective experience. So something huge like a natural disaster or pandemic or something like that. And it wouldn't require, you know, doctor documentation or things like that.
Okay. All right. Not seeing any questions about that right now. So it looks like fairly uncontroversial. All right. So the Student Evaluation Task Force recommendations. This is obviously a much more significant batch, and I want to give a little room to also, if people have feedback on the overall presentation that was given 2 weeks ago by the task force. I'm sure that's been a topic of conversation within various programs. So we do have bylaws language before us so that we could approve this language in 2 weeks if we want to, but they are a significant change. So if people had feedback from their programs about the whole, the work and report of the task force, we'd love to hear thoughts about that as well. So any questions about these bylaws changes or on the work of the task force overall? Brian.
So first, overall work, thank you, Melissa. As we can all see with all the bylaw changes, it could just be blown up and rewritten, it seems like. Which is kind of done. So the one question that I had was on a date, and I'm imagining is what I said. There's a transition from, you know, people that are going up for promotion in 2 years and 3 years, but the year that was on there was 2028. That we'll have kind of like a separate bylaw for those that you'll use the, you know, the one all-campus question that you'll have. So this will probably be the last year that we use it. And then next year we use the Student Learning Experience Survey. I think that's what it's called, right?
Right.
And so what was, I couldn't do the math in my head fast enough to figure out what 2028, why that was the correct year.
Yeah, you have to ask Jim Hatton because he was the mathematician on the task force, and he was the one who actually put that in there. And that certainly could be just taken out. It could be, I think the idea was that, okay, so if someone started this year, they'd be going up for a tenure and promotion much earlier than that. But if someone was going, you know, up for the next level, they might take longer. Some people do take longer, right, to go up for that second promotion. And so I think it was just giving some room. I'm not sure how honestly, I'm not sure how he came up with that number. And we could just take that out. We could just do a little friendly amendment and say that, you know, as needed, as long as needed or whatever. But I think it also had something to do with like the 7 years, like your past 7 years, you have to keep things for 7 years in the personnel files or something. And so 7 years from next year would be, that might be how he got it.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering.
All right. Any other questions? Kimball's. Oh, that's right. Kimball's a co-host, so you can't raise your hand. Let me. There you go.
Hi. I just want to acknowledge that I'm pleased that the group took something that I was concerned about, and I think made it more operational. And that is that, you know, Brian's quite right. We have transitional questions, but once we're there, using this new way of getting feedback from students, you know, we have obviously no math formula or whatever to try to make, frankly, evaluation of teaching by students as seen by others, easy, but I like the fact that you've entered in several places into the FPAR and into the reflection part of the application for promotion or tenure, that you must reflect on the student feedback that you got. Because I think, I don't want to be modeling here, but we do want feedback from students to matter. And I think that's a way of acknowledging that it will, in a way that's healthy and more on the point of students can help us to learn to be better teachers and improve. Whereas, just sort of the old vote for 7 or not scheme had so many flaws. So thank you for that. I like it.
Yeah, and I did get feedback from the Faculty Personnel Committee about how to make this kind of work for them. And their idea was that in that reflection, you would also need to show evidence of how you had addressed feedback. Like you'd have to specifically give examples of feedback and how you addressed it and things like that. And that was something that they wanted, and I agreed it was a great idea. So I put it in there.
Brian again.
So I don't know in what order people read the bylaws in, but the order in which I read it in, and maybe this is, I know that we're going to be voting on it in 2 years, and I don't want to give work to anybody, but I read the one with the, I think it was the MOU task force changing from professional, and so even in all that language, it said outstanding, competent, and whatever, very good is what the middle is. And then I started writing questions about, I thought we were getting rid of this. And then I went back to the other bylaws. And so the question that I have is, does the MOU task force about changing the professional track individuals, does that have any bearing on the student learning experience survey and how they link up into kind of one cohesive bylaws? That was a bit confusing when I was reading them together. That's
Yeah,
all.
and I will say, I'm going to ask Kimball to weigh in here as well. One was a challenge of how to present this today. We went back and forth whether or not to try to put everything in one red line document so that we could just see what the section 5 of everything passed would be. But unfortunately, 2 different groups kind of built all those changes. So, obviously that will have to happen eventually, but it was kind of a mess to present. And so I think some of it may be in the confusion of that. But Kimball, can you respond to that question a little bit?
No, I'm kidding. Yes, I'll
You want to know why I live in a world of confusion? Good luck.
So, and just to amplify Andrew's point, it was certainly our group that got our bylaws changes in later than the group working on teaching evaluations, arguably by a year. But anyway, we are definitely now I'm speaking for the task force for Karen Stone and Leslie Eldridge and myself. We knew that this was going to be a strange thing when we set up the expectations for promotion and tenure for professional track faculty, when we kind of left as just this hanging wild card, how we would how we would incorporate any new teaching evaluation system. The intent of the combined proposals will be that for professional track faculty, there won't be an outstanding, just like there wouldn't be for professorial track, nor there will not be those gradations for professional track in the new scheme. Instead of that bullet, what we would have is show evidence to having responded to the evaluation through their FPARs, et cetera. So functionally, it will be the same for professional track faculty as it will for professorial track faculty. The real nightmare is going to be for all the groups that have to read the applications, especially like you pointed out, Brian, the ones in transition, to figure out, okay, well, what have I learned about everything I need to know about to evaluate this person for that evaluation? I'm overstating it a little bit, but basically every piece that we've had in the application will still be there, except that we no longer will have that nice, easy little word that came from the bylaws from student evaluations for either group. But our group is okay with that. We were agnostic on any change to that part. We were just trying to make sure that, and I guess, is it too early to start talking about our version of the bylaws too? Maybe I'll hold up.
Yeah, let's go ahead. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, so when you all have seen a kind of a report of this a couple months ago, I think it was, by Karen and myself. And really our intent is that everything we talked about there in terms of sort of bullet points and goals is now reflected in bylaws language, but the overall intent of it for professional track faculty is this: since the lion's share of their job is teaching, that from here forward, instead of trying to evaluate as, you know, great, good, or okay or not okay in terms of each sector of their workload, we simply have the sort of things that in the teaching box that they must do. And we built those from the existing bullet points that did try to grade out for exceptional, those words never come to me when I need them. Acceptable is preferred, thank you, and exceptional. We took all that out in terms of for the professional track teaching. We just said, hey, are you doing all these things? And they kind of aligned for promotion to senior 1 with preferred, and then we added all but one of the things that used to be there for exceptional to go to senior 2. Now that might sound scary, but if you look at the things that we did include, they are, I don't think, controversial. They are things that we would probably pretty well expect everybody to be doing in terms of, you know, sharing their teaching wisdom and being involved in building new curriculum and so forth. We did strike one thing though, and that for professional track faculty, we mutually agreed to take out the piece that said they must, this is now to get to senior 2, if we had everything that would have used to be in the old scheme to get to exceptional, you would have had this requirement to mentor other faculty in teaching. And we felt like that was so, the opportunities to do that, the need to do that would be so different for so many different programs that just wasn't a functionally practical thing to require. So anyway, that's a very long answer, but hopefully gets us started on the other part of the bylaws. Andrew, let me ask this as a question. I think the intent is to put all these together in one big package so that you could see literally all of the changes at once, both in the red line version of the document, and then for sanity's sake, you'd want to do the accept all changes version too, just to see how it looked. And that's the big package of things that we would hope to have the Senate vote on in 2 weeks.
And I know it was really confusing to see the 2 section 5s, but I was looking at trying to mush them into one document, and I figured it was going to start getting really confusing about which things people were voting on actually, if they were in all one document. So that's why it's not like that. But I know it's very confusing going back and forth and seeing things that you thought you got rid of and now they're back again and all of that.
Well, I mean, I was able to figure it out, but the only question that I would like to see done is, even though we vote on the changes separately, that before it's, you know, ironclad, that each of us sees what the finished product looks, because bylaw numbers have been changed in one, but not the other. And so it's a messy, and whoever's responsible, it won't be me. I will run like Jeremy into Mark's backyard if I have to change that, because that seems, you know, really difficult. And the other thing that I wanted to add to this is, and I know that Kemble brought this up during the advisory council, where he had a mea culpa about the post-tenure or not, yeah, post-tenure review, and there was an agreement that, as I'm a part of the FPAR task force, that we would agree to bring this together. And it seems, when I was reading that this is going to change what the FPAR task force did a few months ago, and we finished and we met with the, and so it looks like that has to be just pushed off until this is finalized, to see what the new student learning experience survey does and how that impacts FPARs in the future. So that's all I got.
All right.
Thank you for all your work.
I have a procedural question.
Yeah.
So if we vote on the bylaws next time, and the ones relating to the student evaluations are passed, then does that mean that that model of the survey, everyone's agreeing to go forward with that?
That's an interesting question. I would assume so. I think that if the bylaws change, well, one, then that would include the creation of the new committee. And so that committee's job would be, creating the new implement and having that go forth. So yeah, I think they go together.
Okay.
And I guess that's a fair question. That Brian sort of and Kimball hinted at too, right? That I think what Melissa and I our concern has been is, do we try to pass this as a single sort of omnibus bylaws revision, or do we want to make sure that each one goes up as a separate vote item in 2 weeks, so that if for some reason someone supports the work of the MOU agreement folks, but don't want the new evaluation process, would they have to vote against all of it? So I think that's one of the challenges that we're trying to figure out, is how to make sure people can vote for what they want to vote on, or should it all be combined? Brian?
So I agree that I think it's better to separate the votes and then combine a document, and then, just make sure that it's what we voted on. But to answer Melissa's question about if we vote for this bylaw change, does that imply, that these are moving forward? And speaking as a chair and as a senator, I have sent constituents to, both social science faculty and to CCJ colleagues, and they've had ample opportunity to comment on it. And I don't know if everybody else feels that way, but I mean, it's been out there. I've seen your presentation 2 times already, and I've presented it, and a lot of people like it. I think the hardest part, at least as a chair of a department, is trying to create the additional 5 programmatic questions without really having any idea of what is a good question right now. I think that's the only challenge, at least as a chair, but at least as a senator, nobody in any other program within my division has contacted me. I don't know if they've contacted Tiffany or Paul, but nobody said anything. So I would think that if Faculty Senate approves of these changes, at least the Student Evaluation Task Force Committee, then that means that we're changing that. I would think that that's what I'm voting yes on.
Brian, did you see the sample questions from, was it environmental ed, that we added to the? Those
Yes.
were some examples.
Yeah.
And yeah. Prakash.
So at the time when we vote on it, is there a date that says when it's going to be effective from? So that might resolve it.
Yeah, well, I believe if the bylaws are approved, then that means beginning in fall, we would implement the new survey process.
But does that answer Melissa's question then?
Well, I don't think the bylaws say fall 2020.
Oh, okay.
But it would, it'd basically be effective immediately, except obviously not spring term, because there'd be no time, right? But it's basically, once we vote on it, that's the new way. So
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. Any other comments and questions on any of the bylaws that we're reviewing right now? I built in a lot of time for this. We are actually not doing bad right now. So if anyone has any other comments, Kimball?
Yeah, at the risk of making things go crazy, I'm genuinely asking this question. Have the students, I think there were students on the student evaluation task force group. Is that right? Mm-hmm. I'm curious. The students are, at least to the degree we sought their feedback, okay with this change? I'm asking the question.
There was a student on the first iteration, but not the second one. We couldn't get a student for the second one.
But Melissa, the basic idea of the survey is kind of embedded in that report, right? And students did feel pretty good about the direction that you already headed, right?
Yeah, we had, Brittany was on our first committee and helped us come up with, the recommendations. So I think that, if she wants to chime in, that'd be, if she's still here. Is she still here?
I think Brittany left.
Okay. We really did still want students to help with the questions, but we didn't have a student who was available this year. But I mean, there is on the new committee, the new Senate committee would have a student on it if we could find one. So I mean, I wrote that into the creation that there would be a student representative too. So hopefully that student could be giving feedback.
Yeah, and I really want to highlight, just to make sure that everyone did see, that one of the, because we didn't really talk much about this 2 weeks ago, but these bylaws changes include the creation of a permanent committee to sort of watch over and shepherd this tool, which I think is a huge change and a positive change in and of itself. That we're no longer saying this is the right way to do this and it is for all time until someone decides to get off their ass and change it again. We actually are having a group of people, including a student, who will be watching this process, evaluating the process, and getting to say, is this working? Are faculty getting meaningful feedback? Are students able to give the feedback that they want to give? And if not, let's revisit this. So I think that's a really positive thing. Ellen?
Yes. Oh, you can hear me now. I really like these new faculty evaluations. I think the questions are great and probably a lot more insightful. The question that did come up for me in reading the recommendation for the new committee is the size of the committee. 8 faculty members seems to me a little bit large. Am I wrong on that?
I'd be totally willing to hear feedback about that. I was just thinking 1 per division.
Is that was the rationale for it? It was just a thought, so I thought I'd just put it out there.
Well, certainly finding a time when 8 people can meet is hard, but.
Although this probably isn't a committee that would meet weekly. It's probably a committee that would not have to meet quite as frequently as some of the committees do on campus. Yeah, I think that's a legitimate question for Ellen to raise. I know that there's been a number of committees that have had a difficult time keeping representation on them. My concerns were somewhat alleviated by the fact that I pretty much could tell that the work of this committee is not one that they would need to be meeting weekly. And I do see good reason to have wide representation for something that is as important as student feedback of instruction. Any other questions or comments? Kimball, did I see you raise your hand for a second when I went to Ellen? Or?
Yeah, okay. This is mostly, I'm feeling a little better about all this. I see in the charge of the new task force, I can easily imagine that if students have questions or concerns or whatever feedback they want to give, not only through their member, but maybe even as like the ASSOU could send a whatever resolution to this committee. I'm glad we have this committee to deal with any sort of implementation wrinkles as we go forward. Because this, I mean, I don't know, a lot of students probably don't really care about student evaluations, but a very few actually really care about it. And I want to make sure that they feel like, you know, they still get their voice in the process. So I suspect this new committee, that's implicitly part of their charge too.
Hmm. Any other thoughts or questions? I can move on, but these are just such substantial changes. I want to make sure that if there's anyone who's secretly keeping quiet but has a big thought, that you feel free to share it. Oh, Brian's thinking.
So the only question that I have, and this is again process, as Melissa said, is obviously these are massive changes. And there's 2 separate things. And I know in the student learning task force, there's some yellow and blue and red lettering and highlighting in them. And there's some marks on there that says like smooth language or revisit. And so, you know, I know that it's difficult, but before I kind of give my final rubber stamp of approval for everything, it would be nice just to see if we approve of these and we approve of these in draft form, can we just approve the final version? This is what it will look like, the entire section, Article 5 or whatever it is. Because there are some things that are suggested that language can be modified or smoothed or you know, presented differently. And so I just want to make sure that that's finalized before we give the actual because this is huge for faculty that are, starting next year, and this is what they're going to have to use for promotion and tenure. And so it needs to be lock solid, and we have to kind of make sure that this is exactly what we want for faculty. It's the only suggestion I have.
I think you might be looking at the old version.
I'm looking at the one on the Senate drive.
Maybe I put the wrong thing in.
No, I don't
Where-
think that all that blue and all that stuff was gone.
Brian, where are you looking?
I am looking under bylaws with comments and edit under the Student Evaluation Task Force recommendations.
For last week? I mean, last time? For
Mm,
this time?
Should
This
be in, so under this folder, student learning experience survey folder.
So bylaw revisions and discussion, student learning experience survey, and faculty personnel committee COVID-19 changes. The very first folder says student evaluation task force and recommendations.
Okay. Yeah, you are looking at the wrong thing. So that is, I included the folder from last week as a reference point. Apologies. So you're wanting to look at the Word document, section 5 bylaws, red line student evaluation.
And it has a memo on the front page describing which bylaws are included.
Yeah, I saw that too. It's all lumped in the same folder.
Yeah, no, but here, let me, just so everyone's clear, I'm going to do the whole share my screen thing.
That's the only question I have is before we agree on these two massive things that we just know what we're agreeing to and
Yeah.
voting on.
All right,
Yeah,
so,
the final language is in there.
So Brian, you were looking inside this folder, but this
I am.
document here is the final version. So this has all the final language.
Can you go back one section?
Yeah. So when you're in the main doc, bylaws revisions for discussion, student learning experience, this folder is the stuff from last week. I put it there just for reference. But this document down here is the final language for the vote.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there shouldn't be any blue, yellow stuff in there.
Gotcha.
No, all that, it's just the red line. The things that are going are crossed out, and the things that are new are in red.
All right. Thank you. I hope I wasn't the only one confused by that. 'cause
I
then I'm gonna
apologize.
go off.
I wanted to have everything there as a reference, and I should have marked it in some more careful way so that you understood that. My fault. Kimball?
So, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, Brian, and I actually think we're constitutionally bound to put out 7 calendar days before the next Senate meeting, the final version as it would look. And so we have this sort of procedural wrinkle that in some sense there's 2 different very large changes, and with at least some certain numbers, some things that wouldn't work right exactly. But what we can do, I think, is try to get each of the 2 separated, aligned, and then one master red-lined one, and then most importantly, one cleaned one with the changes accepted. And then people can look at that one and say, okay, how would this look for me now? How would this look for my program, whatever. So yeah, this is a big one.
So do folks on the Constitution Committee think by next week we could, or by the end of this week really, we could have a merged document so that we can I know it's a huge task. Is this doable?
Well, it's just that the formatting is so difficult to work with. And so with trying to merge so many changes and preserve the old language so you can see what it was and put in all the new, it really gets very, very messy. Lori, do you want to chime in here?
No. Wow. I guess I will just confess to you all. I have COVID brain. My brain on bylaws is much like COVID brain. And so to combine the two during my regularly scheduled teaching schedule, where I don't have long hours to really sink in and be focused, I don't know. Do you need an answer right this minute? Can Melissa and Jeremy and I confab off to the side afterwards and say
Sure.
what's possible with you, what's possible with me? I mean, I would say, let's divide it in thirds and each take a third, but that seems really ugly. And
Sure.
Kimball's waving his hand. Andrew,
I don't want to talk over you, but I desperately want to say something here. And that is, first of all, I want to publicly thank Patrick Stubbins because he went through whatever horrible version of the bylaws we've been working with and totally cleaned it up. So I don't know which version you guys were working on. I hope the newer one that is easier to amend, and if not, this is not saying therefore it'll be easy, Lori, you can do it. What I am saying is that it was really, I'm acknowledging that the way that we had weird things embedded in the document and so on, that just, if you've ever worked a lot with Word, you run into things that irritate you, but this was like guaranteed to drive you crazy how the old version was. Patrick fixed a lot of that for us. And so what I'm hoping, and this is just me maybe winking at Sue Walsh, maybe Patrick would be willing to take a stab at merging them. He was the one that Karen asked to make our version, the task force from the MOU. I do not know what all would be involved in merging them together, and maybe that's an unreasonable ask, but he definitely did a great job getting our sides ready.
I do want to be sensitive to the fact that Patrick is furloughed.
Right, I understand this, so maybe it's even worse to ask him, but anyhow. Go ahead.
I'm trying to decide what order to go in. Anna, you had your hand up. Did you decide to lower it?
Well, I just was going to suggest that maybe we don't need a version that has all the edits in it, and we could just have the final version with the two so we can see how it just reads all together if it's too difficult to get that edited document merged, right? Like just the final product with the two original edited documents might be enough.
So you're saying you're not worried about getting a red line with all the changes merged, but just what it looks like in the final version.
Right, because I can look at the two red line versions, but then I want to really see what they look like when they're together as well.
Okay. Brian.
I hate Zoom. Anyways, I agree with Anna. I think if we just vote on the changes for each one of them, because I mean, you're voting on the substantive changes for both of them, that's going to have the biggest impact. But just like Anna said, I think it would be our responsibility to just get, here's what the final version looks like after everything we've passed. Are we sure this is what we voted on? I don't know procedurally if we have to vote on that, but because we've already agreed to the changes in both of them, but it would be nice, before it gets posted on the website or posted as changes, that this is what the final thing looks like. I think, at least I've done my due diligence going through them and reading more than I probably should have from what Melissa has said. But that was the thing that was concerning me the most. But I wholeheartedly agree with what Anna said. We vote on them separately, and then saving Laurie and Patrick time, we just have kind of a final version that we can just glance over and make sure that this is exactly what we said and voted on.
All right, so the general theme of what I'm hearing is that, I haven't heard any actual substantial concerns with the changes themselves. It's mostly just people want to make sure they have a transparent view of what it's going to look like. But people seem to be in favor of what's going forward. So I'm gonna put a pin in this for now. We will bring these forward in 2 weeks, but I want to give Lori and Melissa and Jeremy time to sort of connect and see what we might be able to do. One other thing I will note, and Kimball, you noted that we need to have the final version of the changes 7 days out. I think we do have the final version of the individual changes, just not what it will look like. 7 days out is technically going to be Memorial Day, and we don't have an advisory council meeting between now and our next Senate session because of that. So there's a little bit of funkiness going on here, but I think we can figure something out. Thank you all for your feedback. This is, I think, helpful, if challenging. And with that, I'm going to move on to Brett. Let me unmute Brett. I'm trying to unmute Brett. There
Here we
you
go. We're in. Hi, everybody. So we have 4 things under this section of the Faculty Development Committee updates, recommendations: professional development grants, distinguished service award, distinguished teaching award, and then a quick update on the distinguished scholarship award that we're putting together. So if it behooves you all, we'll just go in order. The first 3 need a vote. The last one's just a quick discussion. So for the professional development grants, you have those in the shared folder. We had requested, there was about just under 90,000 requested, and this year was a pretty full pot of funds, a little bit of carryover from last year, so we were able to award 65,000. So that's about 70% of the requests. And if my memory is serving me correctly, all the applications were funded to some extent in this round. And so hopefully it was a bit of good news for everyone this time of year. So anyway, I'll take questions on the professional development grants. I'll hold my comments on the service award and teaching award until we're ready for that. And I'll leave it to you if we can waive the 2-week rule and vote on those recommendations for Provost to sign off on.
Brian.
Motion to waive the 2-week rule.
Do I have a second? Anna Oliveri. Any further discussion or other questions for Brett before we vote on the PDG? Precious, is that a question? Oh, you were trying to second. All right. If there are no further questions, please vote with yes, no, or abstain. And traditionally, you should abstain if you're an awardee.
Point of order. I think we have to vote on the 2-week motion before we vote on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. God. I'm getting Lori's COVID brain. Yeah, thank you. So that is the waiver of the 2-week rule. Jesse, are you asking a question about the vote?
Yeah, for some reason my abstention coffee cup is not, it's grayed out and it's not allowing me to abstain.
Oh, okay. So you're abstaining?
Yeah, I'm abstaining for both this and the next one. So if Melissa, you want to pre-record my abstention, that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll do that.
No coffee for Jesse. All right. Do we have everyone, Melissa?
I believe that only you and Jesse are abstaining. Oh no, it looks like Kimball's abstaining too.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear all on that. Now, do we have a motion to approve the PDG? I see Prakash made the motion and Precious second, even though there's like 20 people seconded. I'm going to go with Prakash and Precious. All right. Any further discussion on the awards themselves? All right. All those in favor, go ahead and vote yes. All opposed to vote no. And if you're going to abstain, pick up your coffee cup, or if it's not working for some reason, let me know. Do we have everyone, Melissa?
Okay, just a second.
Okay.
So I've got abstaining, I've got you, Brian, Justin, Lori, and Marianne.
And Jesse.
Oh, and Jesse, right. Mhm.
Aren't we good?
Yes, everyone else is in favor.
All right, clearing all on that one. All right, the motion passes. Thank you. All right, Brett, back to you.
All right, thanks. I actually wanted to say thanks to Faculty Senate for giving us 2 additional humans on the committee this year. It was really helpful, especially in the last 6 weeks. Having those 2 additional people kind of made everything happen here. So thank you for that. The next on the agenda is the Distinguished Service Awards, and then the Teaching Award. And after that's the Scholarship Award. And when we get to that, I'll give you an update on what we're doing, but it's also going to have some implications for the procedures of the other awards. But that's for a future.
Brett, do you think it'd be all right if we voted on the teaching and service together, or do we think we need to waive the 2-week rule twice?
No, I think we can vote on them as efficiently as possible.
All right, so hold your emotions until we hear all the teaching and service.
Okay, so announcing the Distinguished Service Award. There are 2 winners this year. One is Carol Ferguson, and the other award winner is Andrew Gay.
Oh,
the 2 Distinguished Service Award winners. So congratulations.
No, thank you.
Yeah, that is one of the procedural issues is that Faculty Senate needs approval, but it often, the committee is often acknowledging the winners ahead of time. So we can talk about that in a moment. But so congratulations to you all. I know there's some past award winners on this call here from last year and the year before at least. So that's the Distinguished Service Award. We can give that up to 2. So that was Carol Ferguson and Andrew Gay. Distinguished Teaching Award. The Service Award is chosen by the Faculty Development Committee, but this Distinguished Teaching Award, a member of the Faculty Development Committee is on the selection committee. And this year that was Tiffany Morey. And then the committee, this actual selection committee is made up of 1 representative from each division. And so I was not on the Distinguished Teaching Award committee. So I'll announce the 4 winners. If Tiffany, you want to add in anything, if you're on the call, you can jump in here.
Tiffany, in case she wants to chime in.
Okay. The Distinguished Teaching Award this year goes to 4 individuals. Dr. Paul Condon, congratulations. Everybody's giving this silent applause here. Erica Knotts, Carrie Soka, and Dale Vidmar, the 4 Distinguished Teaching Award winners. So again, we request to for you all to waive the 2-week rule.
All right. Can I get a motion to waive the 2-week rule? I saw Lori and Justin, so I'm going to call that a motion and a second. Any further discussion on waiving the 2-week rule for teaching and service awards? All right, vote. Please indicate yes for yes, no for no, or need a break if you need a break. And all right. If you can't abstain for some reason, let me know.
So I just have Paul and you abstaining.
Okay. All right, so the motion is approved. May I get a motion to approve the teaching and service awards? Brian and Michael Stanfill were the first 2 I saw. All right. Any further discussion on those? I'm assuming all these hands are just people trying. Let me lower those. All right, any further discussion now? No? All right, all those in favor, please vote yes. Any opposed, please vote no. And if you're abstaining, abstain.
So again, Kimball, what does that mean?
Oh, Kimball's clapping.
Silently, but now you're making me acknowledge it audibly.
So I have Gay and Condon abstaining, and I think everybody else voting yes, if that's what that means, Kimball.
All right, thank you. The motion is passed. All right.
Great. Update on the scholarship award. I don't have a whole lot of remarks prepared. I'll more open the floor for discussion after I make 1 or 2 comments and invite Kristen Osevar, if she's still on the call, to jump in here as well. So I mentioned adding a couple more people to the committee has helped us kind of split into a little bit more of an awards team and a grants team here when it goes feast and famine. And so Kristen's done a lot of the heavy lifting here in the last couple months of the Distinguished Scholarship Award that we're going to propose. As if you'll recall, in the fall, we kind of sprinted to maybe get it in so we could award it this year. And what we soon realized is that the construction of the Distinguished Scholarship Award had a lot of implications, opened a lot of cans of worms for the procedures of the Distinguished Teaching and Service Awards. And we decided that we wanted to get it right. And so the process is we're structuring the Distinguished Scholarship Award how we think is ideal. And then we're going to see what implications that has for the service and teaching awards, and then propose some revised language for those. So all three are a little bit more in harmony. So if Faculty Senate wants us to, we can have this all ready to go in 2 weeks. But the call for the nominations isn't until later in the fall. And so I would recommend we're just gonna keep working on it, and then we'll bring it to you at the beginning of the fall. That's usually the quietest time for this committee anyway. For the Faculty Development Committee, we don't have many grant proposals to consider and that kind of thing. So anyway, that's the update on where we're at. We can have it ready for you if you want it. Otherwise, I think we'll save it for the fall.
Well, I will say, looking at the bylaws that we have to vote on in 2 weeks, and also voting on all the committees and AC and all that, it probably is best to come back in the fall.
Yeah, next week I'll have Carpenter 2 awards as well in 2 weeks.
Okay. So. Kristen, you had a comment?
The only thing I wanted to note is that the procedure as it stands right now is that in week 2, the call for nominations goes out. I think we can still easily get people to be on the timeline next year if Senate doesn't approve it until a little bit later, but we probably want to do it sooner than later in fall. So,
well, I imagine if you all, if you get it to Kimball early on, I mean, he can float it to the Senate even before a meeting.
Perfect.
So that there's a lot of information there. And I also will remind everyone that my first year as Senate chair, no one told me about running these awards, and I didn't realize it was supposed to go out until Patrick contacted me at the end of fall term asking, do you have the nominees? And so we just fudged the dates. So, worst case scenario, we start the process a week late. It won't ruin things.
I don't think the process has been on time in the 3 years I've been paying attention to it. So. Which is part of the challenge, right? There's a lot to like about these awards, the procedures, but there's a lot of moving parts, and if one part seizes up, then it slows everything else down. And so we're hoping to alleviate some of those bottlenecks.
Well, that would be wonderful. I know as a Senate chair, it was quite a number of steps it felt like to go through, a lot of extra work. And then as a nominator, I can say as if someone else, it was a lot of things for the nominator to do. So I think anything that you all can do to smooth that out would be great. Kimball, were you, was that thumbs up a question?
Well, no, thumbs up. Thank you to everybody who's been working on these things, but also, and thumbs up to, as Senate Chair, I'll welcome as early as you all would like to run things soon to the next agenda, in the fall agenda. But I was curious, this is a question for both Brett and Kristen. Were you intending to share any of the outline of those changes this time, or is that what would come forth in the fall? Is these let's call them the streamlined procedures?
Well, last week, Andrew didn't think we'd be able to get on the agenda today, even to get the professional development grants in, because it was proposed to be so full. So honestly, we were not planning on sharing much more structure. We have, Kristen, this document that we have for the Distinguished Scholarship Award it's not just a lump of clay. It's pretty well formed.
It is. It's very close to done.
Cool. Like I said, we could have easily had it. We talked about rallying and having it for today, and then I got the sense that the agenda was too full anyway. And so So at this point, it was like, all right, if we have some time, let's take it. So it's not that it's not formed. It's pretty much ready.
Well, for that
Okay,
matter,
well, we-
even if you want to even circulate documents, this term but not present them, we can always put them in for senator review so that when people come back
Okay.
to the call, that they will have had plenty of time to look at them too.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Brett? All right. Thank you all very much for that work and for the award. I appreciate it. We are behind on time, but I did give everyone sort of a heads up that we would need a little extra time today. So I'm going to keep moving forward. We have a number of things in a new business time permitting folder. And one is just an FYI about some information that Sue forwarded out to me about the Oregon Higher Education Strategic Roadmap. So nothing we need to go over right now, but wanted you to have that information. And I just want to put sort of into the record so that we can vote on this in 2 weeks, rather than having to waive the 2-week rule in 2 weeks. But we have a request from the foundation to renew the faculty representative to the foundation board, which is Lori Ratsbury. And so I wanted to put that out for us to consider. If anyone has any questions about that, I can bring the questions to Janet or ask Janet to attend in 2 weeks. But I did let her know that we would vote on that in 2 weeks. But anytime I can save us having a 2-week rule waiver, I'd rather do that. And then Prakash, did you want to say anything about the campus theme proposal? And then we will vote on that in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, as you know, we could not complete the the spring term campus theme events. And Justin and I talked about that, and we also brought it to the committee, the larger campus theme program committee. So as you see, we have actually resubmitted our proposal with some modification. We are calling it Thinking, actually continuing that, Thinking Uncertainty as our continued, and then we will plan the program working with the provost's office with all the changes that are happening. We don't know what the things are going to look like. And we were hoping that, I think what I had asked Andrew was see if we could vote on it today, but depending on the timing and all that, if we could get some kind of an approval for that before we end, it will help us planning our next set of events.
Okay. Well, so if Prakash, is it all right if we vote in 2 weeks? Oh, Sue's raising.
Say it again.
Well, Sue had a question real quick.
Yeah, thank you. This is the first I've heard of this proposal. Sorry. I haven't had a chance to talk to Prakash, but I think that I'll just add that there are probably several considerations before a proposal is adopted on changes. For example, just realizing what the opening in the fall would look like and how the other sort of ramifications of any changes would affect your planning. So I would love to see the proposal before it's voted upon, so that I can make sure that I have the resources available to support it, because that comes from my office, and also just the logistics as we know them today.
Okay.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So take a look at that, and we'll consider it for a vote in 2 weeks. Thank you, Prakash. And then I told Lori I would give her a couple minutes to address a proposal she wanted to bring forward. Lori?
Right, thank you. Yes, this came up today in a faculty meeting, and I was charged by my colleagues to bring this forward, and so I am. And it is a proposal to extend the deadline for the 2020 FAPAR reporting that needs to happen, that the faculty need to get in to the provost or to their chairs and then directors and provost, the whole line. And the proposal is in recognition of COVID-19's negative impact on faculty's workload burden and to give them more time to fulfill the FPAR requirement, we propose the deadline for the 2020 FPAR be moved forward for this one time to August 1st, 2020. And obviously, that's the proposal. There will be discussion, there will be amendments, and so forth. But thank you for letting me get that in so that we can maybe discuss it or vote on it.
Thank you, Lori. Any comments? Oh, I'm getting Anna.
I just want to say that I am fully supportive of this and very happy to see it. I had already asked for a personal extension, and I think that it would be just nice, even part of the FPAR committee. I already don't like the deadline, so I'm very happy to see this.
Yeah, and before I go to Brian, I'll just note, I do want to say that Jody, and in a meeting on a different topic, Jody did reach out to both myself and David Bethel of the Faculty Personnel Committee and asked if we recommended an extension, and we sort of talked about it. And at that time, I will just say mine and David's recommendation was that if faculty wanted to request an extension, they could and would be given by their chairs. And so I do want to acknowledge that Jody asked whether or not we recommended one, and sort of off the cuff, we both said, well, it sounds like there's no real ramifications if someone is late, and they could request it from a chair and deal with it one-on-one. So that's not to say that we oppose what Lori's suggesting. I did want you to know that this did come up and was asked of me. Brian.
So as a member of the FPAR committee, the date in which it's due is traditionally June 1st. And I will just say that Kimball's here, but I don't know what the union would say to this, only because we're off contract on June 15th. And I brought this up at a union meeting about when the due date would be. And I just don't know if we have to involve the union if we postpone it, because chairs are technically off contract. And as a chair, I'm fine with grading it over, looking over my colleagues on August 1st or whenever they submit it, but I don't know if this is something that has to be brought forth to the union.
So, and by the way, that is exactly what the conversation with Jody was about the fact that chairs, if all of the FPARs come in late, that becomes an issue for chairs. And so our recommendation was, well, since there's no kind of repercussion if a faculty member is late, let faculty work it out with their chairs so they can plan for that labor. But Kimball, do you want to respond to that? Do you have any insights on Brian's question?
Well, I mean, it is a technical legal matter that most faculty are off contract from June 16th to September 15th. And I think that's the concern of making the deadline anytime in that period when they're not on contract. I should also back up and say, even though I am ex officio on the union board, I hardly speak for them. My personal opinion is that allowing people to wait until a little later into the summer would be a very humane thing. And so I'm very much in sympathy with this proposal. But I would understand if the administration would feel a little bit irritated if we agreed to this and then people then started using the argument, well, my union contract says I don't have to have it in. So I'm a little bit, I think we're in the horns of a dilemma that, we should be reporting on ourselves, and it is a reasonable thing to make a delay. But we shouldn't then turn around and use a union contract to say, well, no, I don't have to do it at all until September 16th. So the more I talk, the more muddled it gets. But
I'm going to go to Lori, then Jody. Lori?
Sure. So in my reading of the proposal, I hope my dramatic reading of the proposed date indicated that it was arbitrary and up for negotiation. And as I indicated in my following then off the cuff remarks. So the due date can be negotiated. One of the union members in the faculty meeting today mentioned that junior faculty may not know or be comfortable with asking for a personal extension, and piece by piece and one by one agreements, wouldn't it be cleaner to just everyone do the same date or thing? And so in the hopes of a clean process that rely on individual negotiation, I brought this proposal forward from the meeting today.
Thank you for raising that point, Lori. Jody. Oh, Jody, you're not unmuted yet. I'm trying to unmute you, but you're not unmuted.
She may not know she has to unmute herself too.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I actually think I moved faster than Andrew was able to.
Sounds about right.
We had a really, just a really good conversation about this. It came to our office a couple of times, and I always want to stress that we don't own the FPARS, nor do we manage the process. It's managed by the bylaws. I do, the only concern I have, I think it's a really valid point. There's lots of things going on. Folks are feeling really busy. The feedback component of it becomes really complicated, not only for chairs, but also directors who will then have early fall, in the best scenario, to respond to all of their FPARs, which is a significant work amount for them. So I would ask that as programs consult with their colleagues, they consult with their chairs, please also consider your division directors and speak with them about it. They also have a role to play in this, and I think that they're impacted probably more significantly than almost anybody because of the workload concern. And I would ask in the same way that, and I just re-forwarded the message that we crafted after Andrew and David Bethel and I spoke, that this might be a good collective conversation between chairs, directors, and faculty, and a good point to make some, perhaps some mutual collaboration, which may not necessarily meet, Lori, your purpose of having everybody do the same thing, but there's an inequity issue as well in terms of the amount of faculty that are in some divisions versus others, and that's also true for chairs.
Jody, so to confirm, is the current deadline June 1st?
Yeah, June 1st for, yes.
Okay, so the date of our next faculty meeting or faculty senate meeting.
Yes.
Any other thoughts, Brian? Oh, Brian, you're not talking yet.
I'm talking. I'm just talking to myself, which is what I do all the time. So just one final thing about that, since I've been reading the FPAR stuff, is there's nothing that obligates directors to reply to any FPAR in the current iteration of the bylaws. The FPAR task force has made recommendations, which we haven't presented to the Senate yet, but at this point in time, there is nothing at all in the bylaws that obligates any director to comment on faculty, just the chairs. And even then, it doesn't even say comment. I think it says like some sort of vague, ambiguous term like that they've received it or something like that. That's all I got.
Lori again?
Right. So in the proposal, it's one page, just one page that I gave to Andrew that is now in the drive for your consideration. I copied and pasted the language from the bylaws so that you could see exactly. There's a section in the middle about that I edited. You'll see it. I didn't think I needed to enumerate all the areas that the FPARs were supposed to cover. It was just the procedural that we were interested in. So that's it.
All right, so Laura, I don't hear you making any motions right now.
Oh, would you like me to?
I'm not. I'm not saying. I mean, my question is. I mean, this seems like I totally understand the concerns, and seems like a lot of people have thoughts about this. I'm concerned about having anything voted on without having chairs a chance to see the proposal and understand what's coming. But I'm also sensitive to the fact that the current deadline is the next faculty senate meeting, and therefore, I guess I'm leaving it to you.
Would anyone else like to do something with my proposal that I brought forward? I mean, our chair was in that faculty meeting and they were nodding, but you're right, to blindside other people. Kimball is waving his hand.
Kimball is waving.
Well, I think this is one of the times, even with all of the awkwardness of timing, that it really would be inappropriate to waive the 2-week rule. But what I think I'm hearing most people say, I don't think we're that far away from something that can work, is we'd like to have, after some collaborative discussion with all the players, do something. And I don't know what that something is, but it might be that we have a nice proposal that we vote on with a waiver of a 2-week rule on our last meeting, or it might be just a general person's agreement, the pro bono. I mean, I think we should solve this problem, but not try to ram this through on our procedures. So my recommendation is we talk to all the people and see if we can't find something that we can announce or vote upon if we need to at the meeting.
Okay. Brian?
Is Sue still with me? And Jody and Karen? So I know we have a chairs meeting on Wednesday. Can we bring it up then and just ask for leniency? Because I'm willing to give it to my faculty, but I don't know if we have to do anything crazy. If we just talk to all chairs on Wednesday.
I'm trying to unmute Sue.
I'm there with you. Sure, we can put it on the agenda. We'll do that. I think it's important enough, as Kimball described, the sort of different issues, that we should start with the chairs meeting on Wednesday and then move out from there. Yeah.
Because I think all the chairs will be fine with it for a one-time exception without just, and people can get in early, and that would be wonderful too.
Well, I wonder if the APSU leadership would be part of that conversation and endorse a change, but also recognize that it shouldn't be abused in the course of, pulling off the change of date. So I can reach out to Ed. I'm actually meeting with him tomorrow, and I'll put it on our list.
Good idea.
Thank you, Sue. All right, well, it sounds like we have a course of action then. So thank you, Lori, for bringing up the discussion.
Andrew, can I just wanted to clarify something. So would we find out if it was going forward before the next meeting? We'd have to, right? Because otherwise everyone's going to have to do their FPAR by the next meeting.
Right. I will be in the chairs and directors meeting myself. So I'll be part of the discussion and make sure I communicate with folks what happens there. Okay. Anna.
I'm just wondering, is there a way that Senate can vote virtually before our next Senate meeting? Like that there's some sort of doodle poll, if we do need to do something before that, but the deadline is our next meeting?
I'm not actually 100% sure what procedurally is allowed in terms of that. I don't
Jody's saying no.
think so. It's unprecedented for sure. Jody, do you have any?
Yeah, I have this very vague recollection. This came up during one of my tenures as Senate chair. There's no proxy vote. There's no remote vote. And I don't even know if it's still in the bylaws, but it wasn't then. But it was not something that that we could do.
I mean, I feel fairly confident that a good discussion at chairs and directors will lead us to a pretty clear understanding of what we can do, and so I imagine that we can send out an email that says, here's what was resolved at chairs and directors, and we will vote on that at our next meeting, and that will give people some good direction, I think. Lori?
It would be a kindness if we could alert folks that their Memorial Day weekend could in fact include some downtime and personal time. If we could notify folks if there is going to be a change before the weekend.
Certainly. I can commit to whatever happens with chairs and directors sending an email out immediately after.
Thank you.
Kimball?
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to keep circling the drain here, but this is something that maybe literally the Senate doesn't need to vote on, but it's a sort of a management implementation thing. There are these, union things, and Sue can talk to Ed. I feel like we as the Senate, nobody's speaking up and saying, no, we got to have that June 1st deadline. I think our leadership hears, and we should tell all of our leadership, including the union leadership if necessary, that we're in favor of some leniency here, and just let the provost and the chairs do this. and not worry about us voting on it.
Thank you. All right, any other announcements of new business that we haven't already covered? All right, well, thank you for, oh wait, Brian, of course it's Brian.
Two things. Congratulations to Andrew for your Distinguished Service Award, and congratulations to Paul for your Distinguished Teaching Award. That's it, I'm done.
Well, don't forget to consider about, what kind of leadership you might be interested in on Senate. There's not only a chair-elect and secretary, there's also other advisory council seats. I really encourage people to step up and be part of advisory council. And of course, we'll be looking at other committees and things next week, in 2 weeks as well. Thank you all. Best of luck in the wrap up of the term, and see you in 2 weeks.